Because being a good person doesn't mean sacrificing yourself and your well-being, because nobody celebrates you for running yourself into the ground. So who was I even doing it for? Hi everyone, welcome to the Lead from Love podcast. I am Yalini, I am your host and love coach. And look, in today's episode, I'm really just going to share openly and give you a look into my life and the personal struggles I've been facing with my mum, particularly this past week. So if you have a challenging relationship with a parent or a loved one, and if you are struggling to navigate your way through and find a balance and accept the circumstances, then this episode is for you, especially if you find yourself in a position where you have to take care of them. So to help you with that, I'm going to share the challenges I've been facing with my mum, as well as the lessons that I've learned and what I am doing to navigate my way through to keep as much of my sanity intact. So it's here for those of you that need to hear it, or that support, or need that encouragement, because I get the toll that it can take on your mental and your emotional health. So I want you to know that you are not alone. I get it. I get just how hard that journey can be. All right, so what's happened? For those of you that follow me on socials, you may know that last week my mum's place was broken into, and, don't worry, she's okay. She's safe. Thankfully, it happened while she was at work, but it was just a really awful shock for her to come home, and, even internal doors had been broken down, and all the cupboards and drawers were open and bags emptied everywhere. So, bless her. Her instinct reaction was just to jump in the car and drive straight to my place. So, I'm grateful that she knew that she could come to mine. I'm grateful that I was home when she got there. And, she's my mum. I love her. I want her to be safe. I want to take care of her. And sometimes that's just not easy. My mum she can be very, let's say, rigid and particular. She needs things her way. So for example, sometimes she'll rearrange her home in configurations that don't really make sense, or she always has her phone off, and so it's always hard to reach her. Only she can call us, we can't call her. And now she sleeps on the sofa instead of a bed because it's easier for her to get up, even though it's terrible for her back. And they're not things that always make initial sense to us, but I understand why she has to do things her way. I can see her trauma playing out. And even though that's not always easy to accept her, because, my mum's gone through her own set of challenges. And I touched very briefly on this in episode 1 when I shared my personal journey and all of my big challenges in life. But my mum, she's grown up with a lot of violence. She's been really hurt and let down and betrayed by her own family. And so for her, trust is a really difficult thing, because trust leaves her feeling exposed and vulnerable, because when you trust someone, there's a risk that they'll hurt you. There's a risk that they'll let you down. They won't show up the way that you need. So to overcome that, to feel safe in this world, she needs control. Because when she's got control over things and she does things her way, there's less risk of being hurt. And, a lot of us do that in our own ways in our life. So I can see why she does things the way she does. And part of that is that her family told her how to live for a lot of her life and told her how to do things. And so, good on her. Now she's taken back the reins of her life, and she's doing it on her terms in the way that feels good for her, even if that doesn't make sense to anyone else. So for example, rearranging the house in ways that we don't think make sense, for her, maybe that's just what she needs, variety. Maybe that's just what makes her feel good. So, okay, I get that. But the other part of why or how she does what she does is because it's a fear response. She's gone through so many of her own traumas that fear is deeply ingrained in her. So anything that creates some level of fear in her body, she wants to avoid that behavior. She wants to avoid that action. And so, for example, always having her phone off, she normally has her phone off, and then at one point she turned it on, then something bad happened. And so her mind and her body went into fear, went, well, I better not turn it on anymore because then something bad happens. And, sleeping on the sofa, because once she went to bed and her muscles got really sore and stiff and she struggled to get up in the morning, and she went into a panic that sleeping on the bed means that there's a risk she won't be able to get out of bed the next day. So now she sleeps on the sofa because there's so much fear inside of her that she will avoid any risk at all costs. So I can see that playing out. And okay, I can normally work to accept it in when it's her life and her way and her home. But in the current situation, it's more challenging because there are certain things that need to happen that might not be the way that she likes. And so that creates a whole new set of challenges. So for example, she came to my home and I had to call the police. I had to file a report. I needed to make sure that everything was going to be okay and taken care of. And that turned into a big fight. She's like, why do you have to call them? Why do you have to do it tonight? I don't want to deal with this. And I'm thinking, but I get that. That's why I'm doing it. And, I know that you don't want to have all of these things have to happen, but this is life. We've got to deal with the reality of it. And then giving her dinner, I'm vegetarian. My mum also doesn't like Western foods. And so it's like, what do I have in the home that I can offer her? And I happen to have some chicken Kievs in the freezer for when people come around. And I went, okay, well, I know she likes chicken, so let me cook that up. But then that turned into a whole thing because, my mum grew up with rice and curry, and she's looking at this chicken going, what's wrong with this chicken? There's all this liquid inside and I don't understand what this is, and this is weird. And I went, okay, oh my gosh, okay, it's the chicken's not a thing, because it's not something familiar that's giving her comfort in her time of need. And then going to sleep, I need to sleep in a bed. I can't sleep on the couch with her. And I knew that she was scared and she wanted me by her side, so I stayed up until midnight to keep her company. But then that turned into a whole thing when I needed to go to sleep. But the only alternative is she goes, she shares the bed with me, but she doesn't want to sleep in the bed. And so that was a whole process. And it's sad because my mum's just gone through this traumatic experience. All I want to do is love her and help her feel better. And the last thing she wants to do is fight and have more drama. And so it's challenging having to navigate that space with her when it's outside of her home. And that's just a few things that were challenging that night. And it's so sad that it had to be so hard. And in part, it's because I'm crossing that line between being her child and being the parent, because my mum wants me to respect her decisions. She wants me to do things her way, in a way that's going to make her feel safe. And as her child, she wants me to respect that. And it's difficult in this circumstance because from my perspective, there are just certain things like calling the police that need to get done. And, personally for me, even navigating that space of respecting my mum as a parent has been really challenging, because for the longest time as I was growing up, I didn't feel like I had a parent. My dad died of cancer when I was 5, and my mum had all of her traumas and all those things going on in her life. So she wasn't available as a parent in the way that I needed, and I didn't feel loved in the way that I needed. I didn't have that parent that I could go to for support or for guidance or with questions to help guide me through life. And so I really felt like I had to be on my own to navigate that space. And because of all the things going on for my mum, she really leaned on me for her emotional support. So I felt like I had to teach her and I had to guide her as we'll go through life. And so seeing her as a parent or feeling like I had a parent or accepting that this was the parent that I had was a really challenging space for me. So to help me find my peace and to help me feel better about that, there were 2 things that I learned along the way. And I'm sharing this with you because if you're in a similar boat, then hopefully it can help you too. The first came through a conversation I had with a lady years ago who does a healing modality called family constellation. And it talks about family dynamics and respect and bringing balance and harmony back to those relationships. That conversation was like a big serve of humble pie. It really put me in my place. And it was a hard pill to swallow, but it's what I needed to hear to bring balance back into the relationship with my mum. And what she said was this: my mum is my mum, and I have to respect her accordingly. And it doesn't matter whether or not she parented me in the way that I needed, or whether or not I respected all of her decisions or the way that she disciplined us or all of her choices, and whether or not I even understand them. Because at the end of the day, I am alive because of my mum. Because here's the truth. I didn't come out of the womb changing my own nappy and feeding myself. My mum did that. And even if she didn't show up as the parent that maybe I would have liked growing up, she still kept a roof over my head. She still kept food on the table to the best of her ability. And honestly, if I had to choose, I would rather have had a home and be fed and clothed than to have had someone who was emotionally present, who could guide me through life, but we have nowhere to live, we're homeless on the street and with no food. She was my parent. All the times that I thought I had to teach her or I had to help her or show her why her way of doing things was wrong, that wasn't my place, and that's not what she wanted or needed from me. And so I had to step back to bring balance back into the dynamic of our relationship and let her feel like the parent. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to do everything the way that she wants, but I do have to respect her as my mum, because at the end of the day, she is my mum. She did raise me. And despite all of the challenges, oh my gosh, if you knew her story, it is incredible what she has overcome. My mum has taught me how to be strong. She has taught me to be resilient. And the second thing that really helped me find more peace and gratitude with that dynamic is a book that I read called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. And this is a compilation of case studies of clients that were regressed through hypnosis to a space called life between lives. So it's after they've passed away, before they come into the next life. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in souls, if you don't believe in reincarnation, hypnosis, or any of that stuff, because the learning and the possibility from this was the fundamental turning point for me. You know, because previously I felt like I got dealt a pretty raw hand in life, and it was, you don't get to choose your family, and this is just what it is. And I used to feel envious of people who had parents that were available, that they were close to, that I could spend time with and talk to. And I used to feel sad that I didn't have that in my life. Through these case studies in this book, what it offered is that as these clients were being regressed to this space, it took them to the life between lives, to this soul home. And from there, the learnings were that we chose this life. We chose the challenges that we are going through. We chose this body, and we chose our family. We chose our parents. Just even the possibility of that being true was like a huge weight being lifted off of my shoulders, because now, instead of me feeling sad that this was the reality of my life, it empowered me. It helped me look at it as an opportunity, because then I chose this, and I chose this for a reason. Because my mum is who she is. She's not going to change. But I chose her for that reason, for all that she can teach me being who she is. Because I'm not here to control her, and you can't control someone else. The only person you have freedom of choice over is yourself. So the more that I can focus on myself and healing and becoming a better version of me, that's where that true freedom comes through. Because my mum is playing her role perfectly, and she is my greatest teacher. She teaches me patience, and nobody triggers me the way that my mum does. And that is an invitation for me to access deeper levels of healing within myself, because she tests me in all different ways. And I'm not saying that knowing all of that makes it easy. It's still challenging. I still have to do the work, but it helps me feel better about it, that if it was my choice, then I'm not the victim. I'm not the victim of my life circumstance. As I take that possibility on, I've changed over the years with how I show up with my mum. And I'm not saying I get it perfect, because I still have moments where I struggle. And I'm not always proud of how I show up in those moments, but it's presented an opportunity to work on myself. And I check in with myself now before I walk through her door. What place am I in? Am I centered? Am I grounded? Have I got a short fuse? Because if I can shift how I show up and I walk through with a more playful energy and I'm more fun and I'm happier with her, then guess what? She's more playful and fun with me. So I really learnt that by changing how I show up, it's had a huge ripple effect on how she shows up. And so it always comes back to me. And I'm not saying it's always easy. I mean, when it's her home, it's so much easier because I can accept her when I go to her house. That's just who she is. That's just how things are. And I get to leave at the end of the day. But in this current circumstance, it is challenging because now it's crossed into my personal life and into my personal home. And I don't get that space to breathe and relax and take a pause the way that I could before. Because now, instead of having the windows open and the light coming through and fresh air in my home, I have to close all of the blinds. I have to close all of the windows. I have to leave the lights on for her. I have to have the heater on all night. I can't wind down at the end of the day and just switch off with a show because I have to put on her Tamil movies to make her feel better. And then, I'm exhausted and I'm tired and we fight a lot and it gets hard. And so, it's great. Those learnings have helped shift a lot of things within me, but in these moments, in a situation like this where you've got to take care of your loved one, it can be hard, especially when it's in your space and there is no break, because I'm just living moment by moment. I'm just trying to get through it with as much sanity intact. And some days I'm in a better place and I've got more energy, and some days I'm not. Some days I'm patient. Some days I've got a short fuse. And so it's constantly this battle of having to come back to a state of balance and breathe and find my way through, because I need to get through the reality of this circumstance with her. And, love isn't just showing up when it's convenient and doing what you want and how you want and when you want. Love is showing up when you're needed in the way that they need. And so, yeah, of course, sometimes it's going to be hard. And so it's been a process of looking to find my balance and my boundaries. So to navigate these circumstances, there are 7 key things that I've been doing so I can show up as the best version of myself possible given the circumstances. So if you're in a similar position, hopefully this can help you too. Number 1, I check in with myself. I need to stop and take a moment to go, how am I actually feeling? Because it changes moment by moment. Sometimes I'm actually okay. And sometimes I'm enjoying that moment with her because, we're sitting on the couch and we're laughing and we're having fun and I get to enjoy her company. And I love those moments. And sometimes it's hard. I've had a long day. I'm stressed. I am tired. I need a break and I can't get that. And there's more things to do. And I need to know how I'm feeling so I know what to do next, because I realized earlier in the week I was feeling like a zombie. And that's a really bad warning sign for me, because that's when I know I'm starting to shut down and I've gone into survival mode. So I need to start doing things to pull myself out before I go too far down that rabbit hole, because then it gets really hard. So 1, check in with yourself so you know how you're going so you can take the right actions. Because 2, you need to ask for help well before you reach your breaking point. You are not here to take everything on by yourself, even if you feel like it, because I'm not the only child in the family. My brother and my sister, they're there and they're able to help. But then I feel guilty asking because, I know it's more challenging for my brother because he's got kids, and it's harder for my sister because she lives further away. And, I feel guilty because I know that my mum is more comfortable with me and in my home. But the reality is I can't take it all on, because then I'll burn out. And when I'm exhausted and I'm running myself into the ground, I end up being grumpy and with a short fuse, and my mum and I fight more, and she doesn't even want that. So nobody wins in that scenario. So of course help is important. And something that I've realized in asking for help for myself, and I don't like admitting it, but I'm going to share it with you because it's the truth, is that part of doing it all on my own, I liked it because it gave me significance. It's like I get to be the hero, and it's as though that proves that I'm a good daughter or I'm a good person, that I did all of this. And that's completely ridiculous. Because being a good person doesn't mean sacrificing yourself and your well-being, because nobody celebrates you for running yourself into the ground. So who was I even doing it for? So in asking for help, it's overcoming the guilt, and it's also about dropping my ego. It's more important that we can come together to support my mum, and that we all feel supported in the process. No one is left behind. And number 3, it's get fresh air. It is so important, because fresh air will wake you up so you feel alive again. Because often when you're in this position, you are going on autopilot and you're not really here. You're like a machine just trying to get through the day. And so that fresh air wakes you up and helps you feel alive again. Whether that means going outside for a walk, or sitting in the yard, or opening up all the windows and allowing that air to move through and circulate your home. It is so important. It will do you a world of good and help you feel human again. Number 4, move your body. You need to shake off that stagnant energy and all of that stress and do something that makes you feel good. So for me, it's listening to music that I love and dancing around my house. Because for me, music moves me, moves my body, and helps me feel good. It puts me in a good mood. And so it's my way of coming back home to myself. And number 5, I meditate where I can. It doesn't matter if it's just a few minutes. And it's not about doing it like a monk, where you have absolutely no thoughts and you're in complete stillness. Because honestly, sometimes when I meditate, I still have a whole bunch of thoughts coming through my mind. And that's okay, because for me, meditation is just stopping and, dropping to the floor and sitting down with the intention of coming back to my breath, with the intention of coming back to myself. So it's okay if thoughts still come pouring through. But each time I realize that, I just focus back on my breath. I focus back in my body. I focus back into stillness. And just sitting with that intention helps me feel more whole. Because when I'm running around trying to do everything for everyone else, and when I am stressed and I don't have that time and that space for myself, I feel like my energy is fragmented, like it's just leaking everywhere, and it drains me. So just even sitting for a few minutes with the intention of just being still helps me bring all of my energy back into my wholeness, so I feel more grounded and feel more like myself. Number 6 is breathe. This is fundamental when we are stressed, when we have so much on our plate. The first thing we tend to do is hold our breath, and we just run around like mad chooks. And here's the thing, we spend so much time and energy as a society focusing on how much we need to eat and how much water we need to drink. But without your breath, you're not even going to make it through the day. So it is so important just to survive that you bring yourself back to your breath. And I find that the moments when I can feel that tension rising in my body and all that stress and that frustration growing, that is when I tend to take a really big, long, deep breath, because that is the time that I really need to sort of come back into a sense of stillness within me. So my breath, it saves me time and time again. Now, it doesn't always mean that I'm then perfectly still and calm, but it stops things from escalating inside of me, and therefore it stops things escalating in conversations with my mum. And number 7, do something that gives you a sense of purpose. Do something that lights you up, that makes you feel good in whatever way that you can. For me, I'm lucky because for me, that's my work. That's spending time with my clients, because when I'm with my clients, there is no room for my stuff in that session. I check my things at the door. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that, because I need that break. I don't want to be thinking about all the things that are going down in my life. So my clients are a perfect distraction for me. But it's not just that. It's I'm in a privileged position where I get to see their transformation. I get to see just how much they're able to shift and how uplifted they are in that one session. That uplifts me. So if you're my client and you are listening, I want to say thank you. You have no idea just how much it boosts my day, because when I've got things going on and I'm exhausted and I am frustrated, each of those sessions, they lift me up. They help me feel good. They help connect me to my purpose and why I'm here in this world and why I do what I do. And it connects me to me and something bigger than me, than just the problems that I've got going on. Because we all need help. We are not meant to do this life alone. And so having those connection points is so important. And I'm sharing all of this with you because loving someone can sometimes be hard. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to not feel loving in every moment, because love isn't always going to feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. Sometimes love is going to be frustration. It's going to be anger. Sometimes it can even feel like resentment, and it's okay. And often we feel guilty because we think that's not love, but anger and frustration or resentment, that's not the opposite of love. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't feel those feelings. The opposite of love is indifference. And sometimes we are so hard on ourselves, and we're riddled with guilt for needing a break or getting frustrated or feeling like it's too much, especially if you're a parent and you just need time off from the kids, or you don't want to be a parent that day. It's okay to admit that, because you're human. Of course you're going to need a break. Of course you're going to need a moment to recharge so you can feel like yourself again. Because you can't fill someone else's cup if yours is empty. It's the same reason that if you're on a flight and the masks come down, you need to put yours on first before you can help someone else, because you're no good to anyone if you're both suffocating. Wherever you're at, whatever your best is in that moment, it's enough, because you're not supposed to be a robot. And it's not all just about them either. It's about finding your balance and your boundaries, because, I try and accommodate my mum to make her feel comfortable, but I also have to say no sometimes, because there were just certain things that I can't accept. I can't have the heater pumping at 24 through the night, so I drop it down to 19. She might not want me to call the police, but I need to file that report, because ultimately I know that that's going to be in her best interest. So love is about showing up the way that they need. It's also about being able to offer that within the confines of your own boundaries as well, because you can't do everything that someone else wants all of the time. So of course there are going to be ups and downs, and sometimes it's going to be more challenging than the next, and that doesn't make you a bad person. It's just part of the journey. That's why I wanted to share this episode, and we've covered a lot of things. So to summarize, the two key things that I learned that helped shift my perspective of my situation and my circumstances, that brought more peace into my life, is one, my mum is still my mum, and I need to respect her for that, because I wouldn't be alive today without her. And two, it's the belief that I chose this life, because I can start to appreciate opportunities for my healing and growth in this dynamic over resentment, over feeling like I got dealt a bad hand. Because if I chose this, then I'm empowered by that decision. And then the 7 strategies that I implement to help me navigate this situation through these challenges with my mum is 1, I check in with myself. I need to know where I'm at so I can take the right steps to take care of myself too, because there's no point in all of us going down, because I can't help anyone if I'm also running myself into the ground. So some of the steps: number 2, ask for help. Ask for help well before you reach your breaking point, because then it's going to take you so much longer to recover. And if you ask for help early, then you might just need a night here and there. So ask for help, even if you feel guilty. It's okay. You're human too, and you deserve that support, and you don't need to be the hero at the cost of your own well-being. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger, and it can bring other people in your life that love you closer to you. It can help build that network around you so that you feel supported and you realize how loved you are too. You don't have to be left behind. 3, get fresh air. Open the windows, clear the energy, clear your space, get outside. Wake up and feel human again so that you get out of your zombie state. Number 4, move your body. Shake off that energy. Bring life back into yourself. 5, meditate. It's not about being in perfect stillness. It's just about sitting with the intention of coming back to your breath so that you can start to bring back the fragmented pieces of you so you can feel whole again. Number 6, breathe. You will not make it through a day without breathing. So whenever you remember, just in a deep breath, and when you are struggling, take a long, deep breath. You just need to get through this one moment. And when you can, where you can, connect with your sense of purpose. Do the work that's going to light you up and connect with who you are and your higher mission and why you're here. Do something that gives you a sense of purpose outside of helping your parent or your loved one, so that it's about you and your personal identity, so that you don't completely lose yourself in this process. Because the truth is, we need to be able to implement these things where we can as we go through it. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know how long it's going to take for my mum to start feeling a little bit safer. And if I think too far ahead into the future, it feels overwhelming. So I can only take it moment by moment and day by day, because it's hard sometimes. And we fight, and she's gone through her own traumas and fears, and she's not going to change at this point in her life. But that doesn't also mean that we don't have some really beautiful moments together. And I cherish those moments, and I'm so grateful I get to have that with her. But that doesn't mean that I still don't find it hard sometimes, and that I still don't need a break. So if you're in a similar position and this resonates with you, I wanted to share my story and my learning so that you are not alone. And it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to need help. It's okay to need a break. That doesn't make you a bad person. That just means you need to receive the kind of love that you're giving. So take a breath, reset, do one or all 7 of the steps where you can, and just take it moment by moment. Honestly, I truly believe that everything works out in the end. So I am sending you so much love, and just know that you are not alone. You've got this.